Did fish keeping save my life? June is Men's Mental Health Month, and since I am a man and I have also had mental health issues, I would like to share my story on how fish keeping has benefited my mental health and been a positive force in my life. I'm not 100% sure where to start this story. I'm not the best storyteller. I'll just start it all the way back in my early childhood, like grade school years. My uncle owned a pet shop in my hometown of Martinsville called Sid's Pet Shop. A lot of great memories in there. I was very, very little. I was so little that if you ever visited that store, you probably saw me sleeping on packages of the hamster bedding. I would just lay that down in an aisle and sleep in the middle of an aisle on hamster bedding. Have a lot of fun feeding the animals, feeding the fish, the birds. I love birds as well. I want to get some birds, but we'll see. I'm in a pretty small spot. I remember they used to have like the big bins of feed, and I would just like run my hands through it. Probably a little bit gross thinking about now, but it felt nice. It was sensory. I don't know. I've had a childhood that had a little bit of a background in animals and care for animals, and I'm not going to sit here and say that I was diving deep into the knowledge side of things, but the enjoyment side of things I was definitely into it. Fast forward throughout my teenage years, this is more the mental health side. I was an angry kid. God bless my mother. She put up with so much, and she worked for Eli Lilly. She had a lot of good resources because she worked at Eli Lilly as far as health insurance goes. I know not a lot of people are that lucky. She was essentially a single mother. I had that dad for a period of time. My biological father, for those that don't know, passed away while my mom was pregnant with me. He actually worked at Eli Lilly, and I believe the story goes that his manager came to my mom while my mom was pregnant with me. She was just a waitress at the time, and said, hey, once you have that baby, get with me and we can find you a job at Eli Lilly. And so for the vast majority of my life until she recently retired, she worked at Eli Lilly. So tangent aside, I had a lot of good resources. I had a mother that refused to give up on me, and that helped me out a lot. Now, that doesn't mean that my mental health issues were put to bed, to say, but it's something I've struggled with in my adult life. I still get my blue days. Let's fast forward to June of last year. I have left my previous job. I was in charge of event audiovisual at a hotel in downtown Indianapolis and a private kind of high-end club in downtown Indianapolis. It was a decent job. It was a little bit higher profile. I was in charge of a lot of things, in charge of people, managing a lot of stuff. I left that job because a large chunk of that job was sitting in my windowless office answering emails. I weighed exactly 400 pounds June 1st of last year whenever I left, because I was just essentially an office job with occasional hard work, and I wanted to focus more on my mental health and my physical health. Being shut in a basement a lot of times isn't really good for your mental health, and being 400 pounds is definitely not good for your physical health. So I left that job and I started walking around my local neighborhood. I have like a 7-mile route around here that I walk, and so the weight started falling off of me. I actually fasted for a little while. Some of those videos are still on my YouTube if you're interested in any of that. I fasted for a full week without food, just to kind of prove that the food didn't have control over me. All that to say, I lost 30, 40 pounds within a handful of months. Went to Holiday World with some friends and finally fit on a roller coaster, which was huge for me. But still, during this time, I'm not working. I'm not in charge of anything. Nothing is relying on me. I didn't have a system that I was a part of anymore. And here comes the fish. So one day, me and my wife are watching the nephew play the local ball diamonds, and there is a little fair at a church nearby going off. My wife goes to get me and her some drinks, and she comes back. She doesn't look happy, and she's just holding a single water bottle. And I'm like thinking, oh, did the card get declined or something? But no, as she gets closer, I realize that inside this water bottle is a goldfish. Long story short, she had rescued it from some kids that had wanted it at the fair and were dumping it on the ground, talking about who's going to step on it. So she snatched up that fish, because my wife has empathy, unlike a lot of people on the internet, and brought it back. And I was just like, all right, let's do this. And I go into hobbies hard. I go into I dive deep. Unfortunately, at that time, everything was closed except for our Walmart, and all they had was a 10-gallon tank, some quick start, a few other little things. So we got this 10-gallon tank going for the fish, quickly realizing after digging deep that that's not going to be enough for this fish. And I wanted it to have friends. So I started a 40-gallon breeder trying to get it cycled and like set up for it and ready for it. During that time, the fish was having a lot of issues. It had gotten ick. It had like a fungal infection from being, I'm guessing, dumped out on the ground and ran through gravel, and it wasn't good what those boys were doing to that fish. That was 10-second Tom, and unfortunately, I think I have a picture of him, but unfortunately, 10-second Tom did not end up making it. The day I was ready to put him in there, he passed away, unfortunately. At this point, I have a 40-gallon breeder that I don't have, it's ready for fish, and, 10-second Tom doesn't get to enjoy it, unfortunately, but maybe some other fish will. So I look up fish stores in my area, but I found that there was a fish store called Fish Happens. So I was like, I really like that name. So I go up there. It's a pretty neat fish store. They have a bunch of goldfish, and so I pick out a Blackmore and a pom-pom. You've seen Duke and Squirt before, if you've seen some of my videos. As I'm up there, though, I'm looking at all these other fish, and I'm really looking at these guppies. And so I start researching guppies, and then I just start buying guppies, and all of that leads to this. It leads to some cherry shrimp. Getting all of these fish, there's the temporary high of getting a new fish. Like, that's not what I'm talking about when I'm talking about taking care of your mental health and how it helped me. To get to the meat and potatoes of it, how it helped me was there's systems involved with keeping these fish alive, and not just alive, but happy and healthy and thriving, that you have to do. You're taking measurements, you're testing water, you're feeding them, which isn't like the biggest part, but there's systems you have to take care of, there's maintenance you have to take care of, and it's integral. It's important things, and when you do these things successfully, these living beings can thrive, and that is like the highest order of it. It's because of you and your efforts and your care for these beings, they are thriving, and that was such an important part of balancing out my mental health. Obviously, my wife is probably the biggest support for me and the biggest source of joy in my life, and the biggest reason I continue. Caroline, I'll probably say it multiple times in this video, but I love you so much. And then also during this period of gotten a job, I got a job that is basically I'm getting paid to walk, so I'm still losing weight. It's now June, so it's been just a few days over a year at this point. I'm down 70 pounds. I'm officially at 330. I got a long ways to go. I'm kind of rambling, but the fish were a big part of that. Finding these different things in my life and putting them together in a proper order has really helped me out, and that's kind of what you've got to do. Find out what's working for you. I'm not an expert. This is just how my life is going at the moment. Has this cured my mental health issues? The big one's depression for me. I have a lot of anxiety as well, but no, it's not really something that gets cured, at least not for me. But it keeps me going, and it does make every day better. That's kind of the fight with mental health issues, is fighting through every day, making every day a little bit better. And a lot of that's going to be on you, and a lot of that's going to be your support system. If you don't have a significant other, you are worthy of love. I can promise you that. As someone who has had a lot of issues with not feeling worthy of love, you are worthy of love. You will find someone. You might have to get out of your comfort zone. You might have to find a process to get out of your comfort zone and find that love. I don't know. Like I said, I'm rambling at this point. Fitting for Mental Health Month that it's just the ramblings of a madman, but I don't know. Here comes the synopsis, or the conclusion, or what's the word for the ending of a video. So in conclusion, did fish keeping save my life? I don't think so, not by itself, but it was an integral part in my journey to a more rounded, stable mentality. Obviously, my wife is like the biggest supporter of me. I don't know how she puts up with me some days. Caroline, I love you so much. And then obviously, finding work, working on your physical health as well. All of these things, are inclusive in a well-rounded mental health situation. You got to find what's best for you. You got to talk to people. You got to talk to the people close to you that you love and that love you, okay? And they want you to be the best you can be, like my wife. So, all in all, focus on your mental health. Love the people around you. Accept the love from people around you that are trying to give it to you. And just always strive to be a little bit better. We're going to have ups and downs. Some days are going to be real bad. Some days are going to be real good. Don't take my advice on a whole. Talk to experts, talk to a mental health professional if you're able to. Just find what works for you. There's lots of groups out there. And then, I'm rambling at this point, but, finding a hobby, and not just a hobby, but something that requires your attention, that requires you to break the cycle of being in your own thoughts and be like, oh, I have to go do this. I have to go take care of these fish. Okay. Now, these are set up to where they're pretty self-sustaining. I can, a couple days in a row just focus on feeding them and nothing else. But at the very least, I have to break the cycle of my own thoughts and feed these guys. Okay. And then I have my weekly tank maintenance. Okay. So do something that you're going to enjoy. Don't just find something that's going to be a chore. Find something that you can get enjoyment out of and see some progress in and feel good about what you're doing, but also has those little things that, like, no, you have to do this. If you don't do this, things are going to go wrong. Things are relying on you. Okay. Stay strong out there, guys. Happy Men's Mental Health Month, and just be you. What do you think, guys? Do you think I got the point across? Is there any value in this video, guys?